Unopposed, we're going to go ahead and start the meeting. I don't know if there's any old business to discuss. And if not, we will go ahead and move on to our number of action items that we need to look at. The first one is
Cindy.
I'm sorry.
Could we revise the agenda to
I did forget to ask that because we needed to add one, didn't we?
Yeah, the non-resident patrons.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yes. So that is some business we do need to take care of, is we need to add the non-resident, which is 3320 to the agenda. Do we want to start with that one or do we want to end with that one?
Up to you. We can start with it if you want to.
If everybody is ready, then we'll go ahead and start with the non-resident revision to that code, which is 3320. And I think you're wanting to add in.
Right. So this is Illinois law that we have, if we offer a non-resident fee card, that we have to abide by this Cards for Kids Act, which provides free library cards to non-resident children who are eligible for free lunch and are not eligible because they don't live in our district for a regular card. And then it also entitles disabled veterans up to 70% disabled due to combat to a non-resident card for free as well if they do not live in our area.
Go ahead.
I anticipate this is going to be a very small number, but we do have to include it.
Will that take care of some of our students at District 118 though, who live outside the district?
Jessica and I were talking about this yesterday, and we were kind of the opinion that if you live in the outside district, that doesn't make you eligible for Westville. Chances are you probably don't qualify for free lunch, but we're running on assumptions.
Okay.
Because you'd have to live outside of the area that falls under Westville's, which is going to be at pretty much areas south of Main Street. Mm-hmm. So we're thinking people that live out in 61834 live up north. So that's why we think it's going to be a very small percentage of eligible kids. But the only other way around this is if we don't offer a non-resident fee card at all, which I don't think we want to do. I don't want to.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions on the non-resident patrons revision? And if there are no questions, does anyone want to make a motion to go ahead and move this to the board?
I so move.
Second.
Okay. Jane and Mark. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have to do we don't have to do roll call votes at the policy meeting, do we? For all, since we're online?
I think it's
only for money.
Yeah, it's only if money's involved. So you're okay.
Okay. All right, so now we will move on to 5590 punctuality. I think that was the one that we had discussed some time ago, correct?
Right, about a little over a year ago, we discussed this one. I brought it back. This one goes hand in hand with the vacation leave, sick leave, excessive absences. This was two policies that my staff committee, policy committee reviewed, and Johnson, Lisa, and thought there was someone else here. Johnson and Lisa are here from that committee, and then of course Jessica's here. Oh, okay. Connie's in as well. So this just kind of clarifies some language regarding expectations on attendance. We include language about our time clock since that's new. And then also establishing a revised attendance point system. My committee can tell you we have gone round and round and round on this. But it's been great feedback to kind of tease out what we think this should look like. And like I said, it kind of goes hand in hand with the vacation, sick leave, excessive absences policy, and mostly having to do with how we record absences for everyone fairly, but also kind of spurned on by that policy and how part-time leave is handled. So it's kind of complicated, but it all makes sense to us. And if my policy committee, staff policy committee has anything to add, feel free to do so. Okay.
I know I questioned this the last time. I don't even remember where we ended up with it, but the point system, you said that was stuff that you questioned in your meeting?
We discussed
other things were.
We discussed the point system. Where it landed last time was we just left the punctuality policy as it was and disregarded the previous point system. This is a revised point system based off of the conversations we had in our staff policy committee meetings and emails.
Am I right in reading this that regardless of the point system, if you fail to show up for 2 shifts in a row, you're dismissed, even though that's just 6 points?
That was one thing that we went back and forth on. Currently, the policy is 3 no-shows, no-called no-shows, regardless of points. We thought 3 was excessive. If you haven't shown up and you haven't called or emailed your manager for 2 days in a row, are you going to be there for the 3rd?
No, I'm not arguing that, but
yeah.
But even though you just have 6 points, in that case, you wouldn't need 15 points.
Right.
You know, I think it's all about enforcement. I'm not, like I said last time, not a fan of this, but if you think it's the right thing to do, it's just that every department head has to enforce it exactly the same way.
Exactly. That's what we want.
Will it happen though? I mean, is that everything that I ever hear from you, that sounds like that's the problem, is that there's not a consistency across the board. And I could be wrong, but it's just kind of what I'm gathering from things.
Well, and there's not consistency because of the vagueness of the policies and everyone kind of applying it how they see fit. And I know sometimes vague policies are a good thing because so you do have that flexibility. But in this case, we have different department heads making decisions how they see fit, and then, but it's not applied fairly across the board. And then that's where the discussion is coming in and the viewing of unfairness from other employees. Well, we're trying to go by policy, but this person's applying the policy this way because that's how they read it, and this person's applying it this way because that's how they read it. And I have nothing in writing to say, no, this is it. This is how we need to do it. And my staff need things in writing. They need it spelled out.
Can I also say?
Yes, Johnson.
I was just going to say, this is one that I was actually excited to try to see go through. I've dealt with a lot of my staff trying to show up late, and using vague terms with them and general ideas based on the policy now isn't working very well. This is very clear, especially when we get to the time clock of if you're supposed to be here by 9 o'clock and it's 9:01, that's 1 point. It's automatically tracked in our system, and it's very easy to go across the board to any department and say, you were late by 1 minute, that's 1 point, and in a year it's going to drop off. And it's really simple, and hopefully it works across the board. But as it works
now, real fast, because if you're 1 minute late, if you're going to, what point of time does it go from being 1 point to 2 points? How many minutes in there is it going to be? Because if they're going to be 1 minute late, they're not going to bust their butt to get there. And then what's the time before it's 2 points? Is it a day? Is it 4 hours? I mean, from my experience with employees that I've worked with through my adult life, I don't see it changing a whole lot of things other than making, I mean, either, unless if it's people you want to get rid of. I mean, that's a totally different, you know, that's giving you the excuse to, you've gone through them and now you're gone.
I'm hearing what everyone's saying, but I think part of what we need to do is give the staff the ability to enforce the rules as they see fit, and the ability to try this. And if this is not the answer, we come back, or your committee comes back to the drawing board. But I think we need to give them the tools to try to enforce this to the best of their ability.
And I want to add that, you know, you're asking about like what points, you know, it goes up to 2 points. And it's like the very next day, they, you know, if they're 1 minute late today, that's 1 point. If they're 3 minutes late tomorrow, that's 1 point. That, you know, and it is because once they hit 3 points, that's the formal reminder. Formal warning, because it already lists what the consequences are when you hit 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So, you know, they will be aware that you continue to do this, there are consequences.
I hope it works. It's kind of like that other thing that I didn't agree with. I hope it works. I hope I'm wrong. I will admit when I am.
I think with adding the time clock in as another variable to what we have now we don't have any way to track that. With the time clock, it's going to be easier to track, and people that are consistently late, I mean, there's something should be done, honestly. You can't just let employees constantly be late.
I'm not condoning that.
So that's just sort of what we're looking forward to with the time clock, that hopefully we can get some consistency.
And that will help. That will help that you would know that there's not one manager who's saying it's okay for you to be 3 minutes late and another one who's saying it's not. That is true by having the time clock, because there's no judgment call there.
Right.
Because I think otherwise, if you didn't have that, you definitely would, because you could still have the exact same problem, people not treating each department fairly. So does anybody else have any questions or complaints?
So the time clock makes a decision. So if I'm 1 minute late, the department head doesn't mark that, it's already marked.
Yeah.
The department head can't overrule that.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, is that the way it is?
Currently, or how it would be.
The new proposal, the time clock will be the arbiter. And the department head can't overrule the time clock. If you're late, you're late.
Right. There's no, well, my watch says whatever time. No, we're going by the time clock.
Well, since you're convinced it's worth a try, you know, I'm willing to support it.
Well, and since the staff has had input on this and talked about it, I think it's a good start, and it's a good opportunity to see if it will work, and certainly creates a foundation so that all the managers are operating under the same set of rules, which makes it easier for everybody, quite frankly. So I think it's a good thing that we've gotten to this point.
Yeah, that time clock will help that, because I think you could have the same thing if you didn't have it. So,
and the way it's presented to everyone, I think, is always an important thing.
Yes.
You know, I'm talking about consistency, and this is a mechanical, an electronic arbitrator, so to speak. Somehow presented in that everyone will be treated fairly, and I think that is always a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. So with that in mind, does anybody else have any questions, or does anyone want? Oh,
I had one when I was reading through it. The only thing, and I was trying to find it just now, and I couldn't find it, that even if a person calls in and says, I'm going to be late, it's still an unexcused absence. And I was just thinking about, like, what if there's a car wreck and they simply cannot get there? You know, I was just trying to think of a what if, and they call and say, hey, I'm stuck behind a train or something has happened. That was my only question, is that still going to be counted as unexcused? I know that gets tricky.
I know, and that's one of those stuff happens type of deals, but unfortunately, stuff happens. We still needed
Wow.
you here at this time. I asked the very same question to my manager in Orlando, and traffic on I-4 was horrible. And it took me 40 minutes on a good day to get to my job. And that's what I was told. Stuff happens.
Yeah.
Made for a really comfortable working environment, didn't it? Just putting that.
That was my only comment. Otherwise, I think you should try it and see how it goes.
Some people work better under black and white rules that here is where I stand or where somebody else stands. I admit.
Count is all evidence to the contrary on that one. So does anyone want to make a motion?
I will.
Mark?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
And Mary? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We'll take that to the board. The next one is revisions of the vacation, sick, and removing excessive absences because it is now in the one we just discussed. I think I have the wrong one in front of me. Does anyone have any questions or I don't know where that one went? Does anyone have any questions on that one or any comments? I think I did have a question on that, and I think it had to do with sick. I think that was the one that had something in there about part-time or full-time employees can take their sick days and work from home, and part-time employees could not. Is that correct? Is that in that one?
Yes. Yes.
What is the deal with that? I mean, I don't know what your full and part-time employees do, so I don't know what the difference. How I would see that is that if a part-time employee would be sick, more than likely they're going to come into work maybe sick when they don't feel as good because they have to be there. I don't know if their jobs just there's nothing that they can do at home, or what the difference is between the full and part-time employees having that option.
And Johnson and Lisa and Connie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this came about as part of the discussion of we have been able, because of COVID and working from home, we've discovered that we do have flexibility for full-time staff to work at home because of their job descriptions, but part-time staff, if we're open to the public, chances are we need them here for coverage. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, most full-time staff have more regular duties, so at least mine do. So they have regular duties that I can give them something from home easier than a part-time staffer. So if a part-time staffer calls in sick, I may not have something for them at that point that I can give them to do from home, but I'm going to have something more than likely for the full-timer to do because they do more regular duties. That's how I see it.
Right.
If there are anybody else have any questions on that one? If not, is there a motion to take that to the board? By anyone? Jane?
I second.
Okay, and that was
Martha.
Sorry, Martha, your name just went out of my head. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Our next one is codes 5220 and 33 42 organizational charts. Do we need to do the facilities assistant and administrative assistant before we would look at this?
No.
No.
Because they're not on this. So if
Okay,
those pass, they're gonna have to be
really
revised
small
again.
and I can't say exactly what we're saying underneath, so I didn't know what that was, so. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on this one?
This is basically giving Jennifer extra duties. Extra.
It's basically a little bit, it kind of just splits up. When Teresa was director, I was assistant, I was over everybody except Susie and Josh, I think. And so what this does is it basically divvies it up between Jessica and I, where I still have the business manager and IT, and then I have the two staff that have the master's level degrees, the librarian 2 levels, and Jessica has our librarian assistant 3 and the management that are a librarian 1 level. So far, I think it's working out. Jessica, you can disagree, but I think it's working out just fine. It is for me anyway.
Yeah, it's been fine. I mean, I still work with Taylor and Johnson, even though I don't supervise them directly, but you know, we still work together on projects. So, I mean, it's all a little bit malleable, but it works out.
So you've been doing this for a while then?
Yeah, we had moved to this.
Okay.
I don't remember, at some point in the fall.
Does anyone have any other questions or want to make a motion to approve?
I'll move
to approve. Oh, Mark beat
And I'll
me.
second.
Okay, Mary's going to be the one who made the motion and Mark second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All in, or anyone opposed? Motion will carry, and we'll take that to the board. And the next one up is termination of employment.
Exit interview is what the file is called.
Oh, okay.
If you're looking for it by that.
So on that, does anyone have any questions? Are you still?
Not really a question, but I think it's a good idea. I think it's always a good idea to gather information. Sometimes it's not what you want to hear, but it's still a good thing.
Yeah. It's always valuable. So with that in mind, does anyone want to make a motion to approve the termination of employment exit interview?
I so move.
Jane? Second by anybody?
I'll second.
Mary? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Our next one is adding code 5215 facilities assistant custodian. I think I just had a question. Was that changing somebody's job description and title, or is this a person already on staff?
So we had 2 custodians, Darian and Roger. Roger was let go in November. And Steve and I discussed this open position, and did we maybe want to think, since we don't need that position to do security in the evening like they used to, because we have our guard when we're open, did we want to maybe think about having someone who's a little bit more like Steve, and that they would be responsible for some facilities work as well and not just cleaning? So Steve mentioned that perhaps even this person could be almost an apprentice towards learning what Steve does. So when Steve retires, we have a viable candidate. So, and with the relocation plan, we got a lot to do. It would be very helpful to have someone a little bit more like Steve that can do some wallpaper removal and whatnot than just the custodian aspect of it.
So this is not a brand new position. It's just being kind of retitled.
Right. And it wouldn't change what a Darien does in the morning.
And it's in the budget to pay for.
It'd be the same pay grade. Since we're taking out the security element and adding this in, we're leaving it as it is.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
So would you advertise for this position?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll so move.
I was giving Martha a chance, but
I make a motion.
Martha's the motion. All right.
I'll second then.
Jane seconds it. All in favor of moving this one to the board, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion will carry. And our next one is administrative assistant. Is this one a new position?
So this is a new position. We currently have an empty spot because of the promotion chain of Reno and Quinn and Holly. Now we have an open spot in our staffing for part-time. And what we are wanting to do is, instead of hiring another shelving clerk that would replace Holly, we would have this administrative assistant take a little bit of the load off of some of mine, mostly Jessica and Reno. They'd also do some circulation functions. They would sit at the desk down in the vestibule, which frees up other staff from having to sit there from other departments. And by working 15 hours a week, we do not have to contribute to IMRF, which saves money in the budget as well.
So this is a part-time position.
It's a part-time position, 15 hours a week.
I thought that job sounded pretty good. If I wasn't so old, I'd go for it.
We were kind of thinking this might appeal to someone who was either retired or even like a DAC student. As long as, they have the right skill set, or someone who just wants a really like a dedicated daytime job, like a stay-at-home parent or something like that.
Well, Mary has a personality for that job too.
Definitely.
Not to take it away from Mary, but
I'll let somebody else have it, I guess.
I don't know what the current status is, but sometimes the college has had interns that need a job that can actually be more than a semester. So it could be for like their sophomore year or something. And they've even had programs where there were grants that would pay for part of the salary or part of the pay. So might be worth looking into.
I did talk to, I can't remember his name, Catlin and maybe Matt, at one point before COVID, about if we could do some kind of work study sharing with DAC students here. And they did not have enough students to fill their positions.
Could be.
At least.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Because other public libraries have partnered with universities and community colleges to do that. And that would be an excellent opportunity to get DAC students here and using the federal work study dollars, but not right now, apparently.
Well, keep it in mind when maybe
Absolutely
settle down of sorts.
Okay, with that in mind, does anyone else have any question? I think I'm saying with that in mind a lot during this. It's kind of like, and
We're gonna have to penalize you a point.
well, you know, chalk them up. Get off the tally board.
I'll move approval.
Okay, Mark.
I'll second.
And Jane will second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Our next one is corporate credit card usage. Was there not one before, so this is putting it in there?
Yes.
Okay, good idea. It's a must-have.
Yes.
So, no. I don't know if anybody had anything they saw in there that they are questioning or.
I just had a question. I wasn't clear from the reading. A requisition form would have been filled out prior to the purchase of whatever item, correct?
Correct for the most part. There's been instances where maybe someone like Jessica or Josh might call or email and say, hey, can I order this? And I give them the verbal go ahead because they have to do it online. They have to use the credit card, whatever. So yeah, there are circumstances.
And I think you had it in there if they had an unauthorized use to pay it. So I would think that would prevent people from just kind of going out and randomly ordering things. And
yes.
So does anyone else have any questions?
I'll move to approve it.
Okay, Mary.
I second.
And Martha. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. This one I was kind of confused on. It's to review and update the bylaws, which were in that packet, correct? Oh, no, it wasn't confusing. I figured it out. Never mind. So we have a bunch of little updates to do to our Board of Trustee bylaws. So the first one we'll look at is 1160, the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah, that's just updating
Names.
the names.
Yeah. And do we have to do these one at a time or is it as a group?
I don't know. I think it'd probably be okay to do them as a group because it's all the bylaws. But I would say that's really up to how you all
I think
want
you're
to
fine.
work.
Just go ahead and do them as a group.
I was gonna say most of them were just, there was nothing really big that changed.
In the past, hasn't there been a motion to do them as a group and then everyone votes to do them as a group and then you do them as a group?
Yes, we make a motion to vote on them as a whole and then
Yeah.
have the vote. Yes.
Okay. So we should probably do.
So the first thing I would have to do is does anyone want to make a motion to do this as a group?
I had a question first.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with it, but why are we getting rid of the technology committee?
Well, we don't need to, but we don't have one. So
Well, there never has been a committee.
There was a committee a long time ago because I worked with it before I was on the board.
But it's no
And
longer
it did a lot for updating the technology, et cetera. That's really what it was for. But it kind of just went away based on what was already being done within the system in general for updating technology. It was also marketing too, to some extent.
Good enough.
Here, I do have a question. If we're trying to make a motion to put those all together, do we still go through all of these after we're done then, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So right now we're just going to try to see if anyone is interested in making a motion to, when we present these, to do them all as a group.
Can I make a motion?
Okay, so we have Martha.
I'll second.
And Mary. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll look at each of them. Okay, so the first one was the Freedom of Information Act, and we were basically in that one updating names of people on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, I'm still confused. Do I need to do each of these individually?
I don't.
Yeah,
think-
we still need to look at each one.
All right. So does anyone have a question on that one? There we go.
Yeah. No.
Okay, if no one has a question, the one after that is 1161, the Freedom of Information Organizational Chart. I would assume this is the one that you're proposing.
Right. Yeah.
So there was that. Does anyone have a question on that one? The next one is 1210, appointment to the board.
So that sentence about the city council, that is from the statutes updated. And then it says, I don't know why it just says the librarian meets with new trustees, but that is Linda and I. So that's just updating that.
So if no one has any questions on that one, the one after that is the appointment. Oh, sorry. Vacancies in board membership, 1220. That one had just one teeny tiny thing on it from what I
Yeah,
remember.
again, just updating it
Yeah.
for the statutes.
Then no one has a question on that one. The next one is powers and responsibilities, 1240.
That ours seemed like it was outdated. So I just copy, rather than try to insert language into what was there, I just put this in. This is directly from the Local Library Act. I just thought that was easier to have it in plain language in the policy manual than try to redo it.
Is it basically like just vocabulary and job titles? And I didn't read every word of it.
Yeah, it just basically explains what you all have the authority to do as the board.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions on that one? We'll move on to 1390, ALA ethics statement for public library trustees, number 1390.
This was another one that it appeared that our language that we had was outdated. This was the official statement. So again, this was like a copy paste.
Anyone have any questions or problems with that one? We will move on to 1610, standing committees. On that was you will notice the change of getting rid of the technology committee. I don't think, while I've been on the board, there's ever been a technology committee meeting. After that comes the technology committee, getting rid of that removing that. And 1710 amendments to policies. Oh, I did have something on this.
Yes.
Hang on.
This one's in green because it's a question.
Did it have to do with the 2 weeks?
Yes.
I read that going, hey, that might be where the 2 weeks, that might be why the policy committee met so much earlier.
It could be, and I don't know. At one point when I read this, I thought maybe it meant I don't know, something that it meant for the bylaws themselves. And then I read it again and thought, well, maybe not. I'm assuming that the reason why, for example, we're meeting today, we would not present this next week, but we would present it in February, is because these changes had to be mailed through snail mail, and that ensured that the mail got to who it needed to get to, and they had time to look at it.
I'm thinking that's probably what it was, because otherwise there's really no reason. Most of it should just be then acted upon, but I'm thinking you're right. It probably had to do with making sure all the board members received the information and could digest it. And
I don't know what the law is, but I think there's something in public Illinois law that you have to give notice or public input. I know, like on the school board, you can't change a policy without at least a meeting's difference.
And that's probably true too. That's probably part of it.
But I don't remember the details of it.
I don't either.
It's sort of like a safety valve, you know, if we were going to change something unilaterally without giving notice to the public.
Where would we find that information out?
Well, I guess in the state code.
Probably in the code.
City code?
Well, actually, I don't think it would be in city code. It might be, but I don't think so. I think it would.
Doesn't the city have a policy and procedures book too?
They do, but whether or not they have anything on policy changes for the library, I could not tell
I
you.
bet you've got to give notice there too, but I think that's standard for all public entities.
Sure.
I mean, didn't we have to read some, I mean, unfortunately it's been a while and I don't really remember what I read at the very beginning, but we had a big, or is this what we read through at the beginning? Was it our bylaws or was it the state?
No,
bylaws?
it was
this.
It was most likely these bylaws.
Okay.
This thing.
Yeah.
So this document will be outdated.
Right.
With all the new changes, yes. So would that be something to check with state code or library association? And certainly we could check with city, but I'm going to be surprised if you're going to find anything in a city code about it. Possible, but I don't think so.
I mean, I would think that this might be something that we need to check with somebody to see if we're doing it right. I mean, we all kind of came up with the thing that it was okay for us to, because sometimes the things need to move a little faster. Or
right.
if
In the old policy, they didn't have the 2 weeks in there. Is that what you're saying?
They did.
This is how it's written. That's why it's not red and crossed out. It's not purple and italicized because it's new. It's green because we needed to figure it out. Okay.
Well, I bet you they wouldn't have it in there unless it was required.
So
let's do a little research and see if we can find what's really required and what's not now. So because so many things have changed, but let's find out.
Okay.
So do we need to take this particular thing out of our group from before?
It's not a proposed change right now.
Okay.
So
this is for discussion.
It was just for discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, it was adopted in 83, amended in 03 and 16, or at least it was reviewed in 16. And I just don't have a lot of trust in those dates based on our other policies and how outdated they have been.
I agree with you. That's why I say we need to do a little research, see what we can find out. Because I personally don't like holding something over for so long. If we're required to do it, that's absolutely fine. But if it's not a requirement, then we need to revisit it and see what the policy is. I think Mark's correct, though, that there is some line there in terms of, because we're part of the community, we're a public body, a part of government, that we do have to make sure we don't make a lot of changes with our policies unless we have input from the community. So we need to check on that.
With the school district, the term was that you have it on display.
Yeah.
For a period of time.
I remember that, yeah. But I don't know about the library.
I would think your state
As per the
code,
Open Meetings Act, we have to state that we're holding meetings 48 hours in advance. I'm not sure, and I'll have to do a little bit more research, or like if that 48-hour period is all we need when it's a policy proposal, or if it has to be longer when it's when it involves policy changes.
I think there's just too much we don't know.
I just sat through that Open Meetings Act training again, and yes, the 48 hours, but I did not recall seeing anything about policy changes.
And if it has to, could we just move the policy committee meeting a week ahead?
That was going to be my next suggestion. If we do have to do it, that we would have it.
I think it's
2 weeks
too long after to wait till the following. It's the second meeting after. I think the policy meeting needs to go sooner then.
I agree. If we can, if this is going to be a mandatory kind of thing, then let's talk about a different date. It's a good idea.
well, I think checking with the corporation counsel, whoever's doing that right now, because he would know the city code. I mean, the state code.
And I don't, has anybody been appointed yet to fill in for?
I don't think
Chuck?
so. I heard on the radio.
I haven't heard any. I haven't heard any names.
I haven't heard anything.
No, me neither.
So you might check with mayor's office, see if Teresa can give you an idea.
Okay.
And I don't know if we need to clarify our putting these things together into one, that it would, of which ones it would include. Do we need to put that in our motion from previously or re-motion it?
I don't think so, because we're supposed to review all of them. So that I can now put the date on here that they were reviewed, even if no changes were made, so that, in another 3 years, we say, okay, yes, in 2021, we reviewed these.
So we're doing it for all revise and remove ones, right?
Right.
Okay. And we're looking into 1710, so we don't have to do any kind of.
Yeah, you don't want to do anything on that. All you want is those that you have already discussed and you're going to present, you want a motion to vote on them as a whole.
Okay. So now we will be voting on or making a motion to approve revised code 1160, 61, 1161, 1210, 1220, 1240, 1390, 1610, and removing 1645. Is there a motion to take?
What about 3220 and 5590? I just had those. That's what we talked about at the very beginning. Were those policies? We talked about that at the beginning of the meeting.
They were, but didn't we do those already?
Yeah, I think those were the ones you initially already voted on.
We started with those and we already voted on those.
Yeah, they were separate from this group, I believe.
Yeah, bylaw.
Right.
Board of Trustees bylaw.
I had those numbers down. It's like, ooh. I move that we accept these policies
So that's Mary.
as reviewed.
Martha's lit up, but I don't hear her. I don't know if she's talking.
I second that.
Okay. All in favor of moving those to the board, signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. I'm not sure what the review all other codes means.
Just
on
that
need to
we've all read them.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Has everyone read the rest of them? Do we need to do anything with this? Is this no? Okay.
As long as everyone tells me that they have read through these, I can update each one to say it was reviewed in 2021 and we're good.
Okay.
They need to be reviewed every 3 years. So
okay.
They have been reviewed.
I don't know if there's any other business that needs to be discussed at this time. And if not, does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Jane?
I'll second.
Mary will second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that's it. Our next meeting is Tuesday, March 9th. Maybe, unless we find out something different where we might need to meet the week before, at 4:15, and probably online. I can't imagine that we'll be out of phase 4 by then. So
Who knows?
all right. I guess
Okay.
we'll see
Hi,
everybody at
Connie.
the meeting on Tuesday.
Good night.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay.